Hi, so as I did with the cockpit area parts, I've done the same with the engine area. I've cut all the parts out and cleaned them all up. I do this mainly so I can do a lot of dry fit and test fit and see what issues I'm going to have. Some parts are okay to glue, like the I think that's the gearbox drive housing. It's two-parter. The rear exhaust, it's quite tricky to clean up, especially with that seam there on the dainty ends there. I'd toyed with the idea of casting. Still maybe an idea to consider. The engine, two parts with the exhaust fan stuck on the end. We've got the inlet fan. We've got some nice little details to stick on the side of the engine, which is a shame really, because not much is going to be seen. What else have we got? We've got the cowl parts. So I've glued the two bottom pieces, and then I've just tacked the top piece in for the simple reason it'll all need painting and the photo etch mesh parts sticking on. It's not a brilliant fit neither on that, so I'll have to see what I can get away with. Sometimes it looks like there's latches here, so sometimes you can get away with a bit of a step or a seam. It's quite natural. And then we've got the fan housing. I think it's called that. Now here we do have a bit of an issue. He says we can get it put together. They do ask you before you stick this together to put this housing in there before you glue these parts together. But as I said, with messing around dry fitting, I can find that I can do this without that option. I can glue these parts, no problem, without adding this till later. Where was I? This part round here is solid and it shouldn't be. Now it is nice because it makes the fitting to these, to the cowl parts, quite solid. That's a solid fit there. But in reality, we've just got struts that come out, and there is a mesh there. So I'm going to have to hack all this out. Once I've done that and cleaned it up, I shall add the photo etch parts, the meshes, and then glue them together and then tidy it round there. Tuck in a photo etch. Here's one of the pieces, the other one's hiding somewhere. I can't see it right now. So I shall use something similar to this to bend roughly into shape. So the first thing to do is to tackle this issue. So I've cut most of the excess off and I shall sand the rest. I shall get on with doing this side now. So I've cleaned up the edges. There's a couple of injector pin marks needed filling. Not that I don't think you're going to see them anyway. I've cut out the relevant fret parts and now I've got to try and bend them. Now that's just simply rounded, they're conical, so this should be fun. So a bit more fiddling. I won't get it perfect, but I just want it to get it near enough. But as I said, the main thing is trying not to get any creases in it. So I start from this curve edge and I work my way backwards. So I've just added some super glue just along the edge here. So I've just added this pair of tweezers just to hold it, seat it while I run glue gradually just along the edge here. Just let that dry, and then I'll continue the last bit at the end there. Leave that to dry and I'll start on this one. So I'm going to let the super glue set because it's quite old stuff. I should have used a new tube, but it should be okay, we'll see. There's always a risk of, because there's very little grab area to glue these, so there is always a chance it could poke them through. Probably more chance of me bending it, but there you go. So let that set, and then once I'm happy with that, I'll glue these two halves together. So while I was doing these two pieces, I added the rest of the photo etch meshes to the other parts. Talk about this one first. Just rounded the corners off the fret parts and a bit off the top and bottom there, and they fitted in okay. This one, the parts fitted very nicely, as you can see. As I said earlier, I'll stick these two pieces together. Glued these last night and they're not the best of fits, and it's just very weak altogether. So what I was going to do was put a bit of plastic card in there just to strengthen it, almost like a brace. But how to get that shape? So I think you'd have this plan, wouldn't you? So what I did was I put 3 pieces of tape, stuck them on like that, and then drew in pencil that shape, peeled it all off and stuck it on some plastic card, just thin stuff, and then just cut that shape. And in theory, fit it in and glue it like that. So it'll cover a multitude of sins and it should give it a bit of strength as well. While I was taking a break from the engine, just letting some glue dry and a bit of filler dry, I thought I'd have a look at the undercarriage just to see what lies ahead. It's a bit tarnished, a bit of a clean up, should be okay. But it was these two bits here which I wasn't really expecting. There's fine hairline cracks, almost like structural. Don't know if you can see that. All along there. At the bottom there as well. So I've never seen that before. I'm hoping it'll be an easy fix and it's nothing more sinister. I'm just hoping it won't all disintegrate. So I don't know, I've never seen it before, strange. So I just thought I'd point that out while I was having a look at them, and I'll get back to the engine. So that's the white plastic card in place, glued, filed, areas filled in. So that gives that whole structure some strength now. My next issue is how am I going to find a way of attaching this part to the cowl. So my idea, and I'm making this up as I go along, I've cut some plastic strips, 5 altogether, and then I've cut some plastic wedge shapes, and then I will glue one either side of those bracket pieces all the way around, so there'll be 10 of these to glue on. They're all set, and then I've made them bigger than they should be, and then somehow, once all that's done and set, is to trim it down to size, and hopefully these U-shaped brackets will give it some strength. So the plastic parts have been added. I left them overnight to set thoroughly, so they're nice and sturdy. So the next thing for me to do is, how do I trim these brackets back so I can fit this piece onto it? Using watercolour paints, I just painted the diameter, the outer rim there. I use watercolour because it's easy to clean off. Placed it on a bit of paper, pressed it down for a few seconds, then transferred the paint to the paper. So that gives me my outer diameter. Then, knowing this was 20mm in diameter, I found the centre and added the 20mm diameter. So with this template, I can place this in the centre and then use the blue line there as a guide to trim back these U-shaped brackets. Now there may be a slight taper on those cuts, which I'll do afterwards because of the conical shape, but that will fit nice and securely with those brackets and just fit with a bit of confidence now. There is a mesh that would fit, I think it's on the outside of the brackets rather than the inside, but because I've got nothing to compare with the photo etch, I'm just going to have to leave it. So I'll get on with cutting these back and we'll have a look in a few seconds and see whether it looks alright. So I've trimmed them back. I marked them off when I used these clippers just to trim bits off. There's always the worry I'll trim too much of. Now I've got to remember, while I'm trying to be clever here, that everything has a knock-on effect. So I've got to make sure that this seats in the same position it was designed to seat, because I'll have that drive shaft pylon to feed through there. It has a knock-on effect with this seat into the body. So a lot more dry fitting. I started to add the basic colours. This interior green, chromite green, whatever it's called. It's a mix I mixed some time ago now. And there's no point cleaning up all these release pin marks because, as you can see, it would be a waste of time. And I'm not going to dirty it up. I want to keep it as clean, as bright as possible. So hopefully we can see some of this engine. Talking of which, I've painted it with some Vallejo aluminium and sealed it with some Vallejo gloss varnish. So I'm just going to go through the motions of adding a bit of interest to this. Once again, you ain't going to see a great deal. So I shall make a start on adding some interest to these parts. So I've just added white and a black oil colour. I'm just going to bit of white, bit of black. And then with a brush soaked with a bit of odourless enamel thinner, just blend it in. And a cloth, just take the excess off. Now you just want the littlest of thinner on here. And I'm just reactivating, sorry about that, I'm just reactivating the dried oil and then just dab in patches here and there just to make it a bit blotchy. And so it's just about messing around really. Just a bit of a tarnished look. So that's it for the oils, I think. I may change my mind. Next thing I'm going to do is use pencil lead. It's HB. Just dab it on. Blow the excess away. Another cloth. And as you can see, I'm just messing around really, hoping to come up with something that might work. The next thing to do, I'm going to add some washes. But before I do that, I want to paint this inlet ring. So I'll get on with painting that by brush. Not going to bother masking. So I'm just going to use a green. This one's a mixture, so take no heed of what it says on the side there. It probably was dark green previously, but I've probably added a bit of yellow, black, what have you. It is a customized colour. Now for the moment, I'm not too bothered about this green matching up with the final colour. So I'm just going to let that dry, give it an hour, and then I'll give it another thin coat. Just give it another thin coat. I'm not too sure this inner wall will be green anyway. Probably should have left it a natural colour, but it doesn't matter. In fact, I think it glues up, could be a glued surface, so I might have to scrape some of this off. So that's the second coat, a very light one. I'm going to let that dry thoroughly now. I'm going to give it a few hours all to dry, and then we can start really bringing this to life with some simple washes. Now that's all thoroughly dried, I'm just going to add some washes. And as I said before, I make this up as I go along. I may add just one wash, I may add a few washes, I may add enamel and watercolour washes. So I'm going to start off with Mig's Black Wash. So I'm just going to let that dry, and then I'm going to come back with some odourless enamel thinner and just blend it in a bit. And then I'm just going to add a bit of a homemade wash. So the last thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to add some solid black just to certain areas, and then I'm going to leave it, and that'll be it. I may use Tamiya's panel iron wash. Just messing around. That'll do me. You ain't gonna see much of it anyway, but there you go. So I'll get on with the other one. So that's both engines finished now. What else? The fan guards painted. Both of those. The bevel gearbox housings painted. Now I had hoped to get all the engine parts done for this stage, but I'm having a real nightmare with these exhausts, mainly because I'm trying to accomplish that pearlescent effect that you seem to get on these exhaust stacks. This has been stripped down twice now and started again and again, and I'm getting to the end of my tether. So I've put it to one side and try and forget about it for now. The idea was once the all the engine parts are done, and I'll quickly show you what my idea is once they are all done, once the exhausts are done anyway. Just to assemble this bottom assembly to the body. Gives me access to clean this seam up, and then that will be it. I'd mask this area off, do all the body colour, do everything else I have to, and it leaves it a bit more clearer. I've got none of this crap in the way. And then at the very last stage, along with the rotor blades, I can assemble it all then. So that's the idea for now. The next issue that's bugging me and won't leave me alone are these white metal parts, as I mentioned before, or metal parts as they call them. I'm starting to fill in these hairline cracks, and they're on each and every one of the metal parts. And I'm not using super glue, that's a no-no, silly idea. I'm using Tamiya gloss varnish and just fed several light coats into the cracks so that it seep in and build it up. We all know what Tamiya paint's like on the lid tops when it seals. You try budging them, so that's my train of thought anyway by using that. And as I said, I've had to use it on every single one. I don't know, strange. It's a headache I could have done without. Because the silly thing is they are nicely detailed and cleaned up. They look really nice. So I'm still playing this by ear, how I'm going to go about cleaning them up and emphasising that detail. So it would have been nice to get all the engine parts at least done for this stage, but that's not going to happen. So I'm going to leave it for now, and I'm hoping that in the next stage we'll have these issues all painted up and out of the way. Fingers crossed. I want to thank you for watching, and I do hope to see you for the next video.